and then I opened my eyes, and the entire wall was like one big black mass. It didn't have a shape. It was just kind of like a cloud. And all of a sudden, it like went like this, like just kind of got really, and then it went down, and then it started crawling up me. So, but the moment I saw it, I knew it was not good. It just had an energy that was immediately terrifying.
Yeah.
So I immediately can't move, and I begin to feel like it's always so hard to describe this because I definitely know I was being choked and I couldn't breathe, but I didn't feel the pain of it. It was just all fear.
In the paranormal war room, the legends arise. We're diving deep down where the truth never lies. Diving deep down where the truth never lies. Unravel the mysteries, let the stories unfold. This beat, these tales are daring and bold.
Welcome back to the Paranormal War Room. I'm your host, Corky, and I'm joined tonight by Miss Alesia Butler. I think you're out of New York, right? Is that where you're out of?
Yeah, upstate New York.
Upstate New York. Well, hey, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us what you got going on?
Yeah, so I'm Alesia. I've been seeing spirits since I was the earliest I can remember, 3 years old. I have a Facebook page called AK Psychic Medium, and yeah, it was something that I kind of shied away with most of my life, but then one day I just decided to embrace it, and now here we are.
I noticed you said that you'd considered yourself a medium since you were 3 years old. You know, how did you know, like at 3 years old, how did you know that you were a medium?
I didn't. I really didn't. At 3 years old, I was more like, why am I seeing certain things, and how come? I don't even think it honestly registered that other people couldn't see them. When I was really little, I lived with my grandparents, and my mom lived there. It was like basically one big family under one big roof. And my brother and sister used to say that they could see lights flickering and other things, but I never mentioned that I could see who was doing it. And then basically as I got older and I finally told my mom, she was like, there were signs. Ever since you were little, there were so many signs. Like I would talk about seeing my dog that had passed and stuff like that. So,
man, that would scare me to death. I think I heard you say you would wake up at night and you would see someone standing at the foot of your bed or something like that.
yeah.
Is that how it went? Wow, that's terrifying.
Yeah. So, there was one man in particular that just absolutely terrified me. And I think that that's why I kind of shied away from it for so long, was because I correlated it with fear. And I didn't really get validation on any of that till like 30 years later when I was talking to my grandpa about the man in his home and how he passed and what the home looked like before I was even born. And he was like, how do you know all of this? So that was validating, but that's at that point where I was like, maybe I'm just not crazy and maybe things actually are there, you know?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So what's a piece of advice you'd give to somebody that's just starting to discover that they may have these type of abilities and stuff like that?
Well, I think it depends on the age. Because when you're really little, I don't think you really put two and two together.
Right.
But if you're a little bit older and you were like, oh, I definitely had some similar experiences, because I'm noticing a lot of mediums do have those similar experiences. I would say don't be afraid of it. My number one advice that I give all of the people I mentor is they are people just like us. You just can't see them. They're on a different plane, platform, heaven, whatever you want to believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
They're just people. So if that were like my grandparent that was trying to talk to me and I couldn't hear them and somebody else could, I would want them to help.
Right. No doubt about it. You told a story about encountering like maybe something evil or a demonic entity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So at the time I had been newly married, and we ended up moving to Oceanside, California, which was very different from New York. So the whole thing in itself was an adjustment. I really feel like a lot of maybe why this occurred was because of such a shift in energy and me really not acknowledging what was happening around me.
Right.
But so basically what happened was we moved into this apartment, and at this point I was still not acknowledging what I was. And so every time I would walk by our closet, I would feel very nauseous. I would feel weird, and I was terrified of it. And I didn't know why. And it all of a sudden just happened one day. And then I noticed our cat wouldn't go in the closet either. And so we ended up moving a lot of the cat's stuff out of the closet, and then he was playing with it again and like using the litter box and all the things again. And then I was like, that's weird. So then I had him move things back in the closet, and the cat again wouldn't go in the closet. He started thinking I was crazy because I was like, can you go get my clothes for me? I don't want to go in there. And he's like, you're weird, because he didn't believe in any of this stuff.
Right.
So I also wasn't very forthcoming about why, because I don't think I knew why. And then one night I remember laying in bed, and he had fallen right asleep because he was in the military. So he was just getting off a 24-hour shift. He was exhausted. And I just remember laying there, and then I opened my eyes, and the entire wall was like one big black mass. It didn't have a shape. It was just kind of like a cloud. And all of a sudden it like went like this, like just kind of got really, and then it went down, and then it started crawling up me. So, but the moment I saw it, I knew it was not good. It just had an energy that was immediately terrifying.
Yeah.
So I immediately can't move, and I begin to feel like it's always so hard to describe this because I definitely know I was being choked and I couldn't breathe, but I didn't feel the pain of it. It was just all fear. And I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, well, that's sleep paralysis. I've never had sleep paralysis ever in my life. When I started levitating off the bed, and then all of a sudden, I just remember saying to myself, okay, I need to start doing something because I can't move. I could only like do this. I could only move my eyes, and I could feel tears going down into like my ears because I was, levitated. So I just started the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
So I start saying it, and within seconds, this huge, massive light comes through my window, bolts right between us. I fall, which woke my husband up. And that's how I knew it wasn't sleep paralysis, because he turns around and he's like, WTF, what is going on? And the moment that I fell in the bed, I just was like, like I took a huge breath, which also validated this thing was choking me.
Wow.
And the black mass flew out the window, but the light stayed like right here. And it was massive. It was not like a little glimmer. It took up the whole room, but it was bright right here. And I was so scared that I didn't move. And he's yelling at me going, what are you doing? Like, it's middle of the night. And I'm not hearing what he's saying because I'm looking at this thing out of the side of my eye, just going, do you see it? Do you see it? And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't see anything. I'm like, no, you see it, right? Like, it's right there. And all of a sudden I heard, I am God. I've saved you and I love you. And it said, I love you 4 or 5 more times. And it said, I'm not leaving until you're okay. Like, calm. And I was like, well, that's going to be a bit, bud, because I'm not calm. And it did.
That's powerful, though.
Yeah.
That's powerful. What do you think? Why would you think something would want to attack you like that? That seems straight up demonic to me. I feel like you kind of think the same way I do. But what do you think attracted it to you? What's going on with that?
So the guy that actually did the podcast made a wonderful point to me that I don't know why I didn't think of sooner. My ex-husband at the time was very negative. very abusive, just not at all who he portrayed himself to be when I married him.
Exactly.
And I think that because I was isolated away from my family in a place I didn't know, going through this alone because I didn't feel like I didn't want to tell anybody what was happening. And I feel like his energy made me easy prey because I was always the type of individual that was very strong, very determined, very just independent. And when I got married, it dwindled so like quickly
Right.
that I
You know,
feel like I just was, yeah,
yeah, I believe people can have, when you start thinking about the spiritual realm and ghosts and stuff like that, spirits, whatever you want to call them, I think people can have attachments and stuff like that. Do you think he had an attachment on him that maybe started to feed off you once he got you? I'm assuming your family's probably where you're at now, and you moved across the country and kind of weakened your defense system and stuff like that. I just wonder if maybe he had an attachment on him or something like that.
it's interesting. I never thought of that, but I
Mhm.
will tell you that right after this all happened, we ended up moving back to New York because he got out of the military.
Right.
And we ended up moving and buying a house that my family from Italy, like, moved here, born in the home, died in the home, like 14 of them. And so it meant a lot to my family for us to buy this home and live in it.
Right.
And after this event took place in California, I slept in the car for 2 weeks. I was
Wow.
terrified. I didn't turn off the lights. Like, he thought I was literally crazy. So when we moved back, I had a sense of relief, like, it's over. And it wasn't.
Right.
I remember coming home and saying to him, "How come you leave the basement lights on every day? We don't ever go down there. Like, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm not." And I would have calls from like my grandparents because they lived up the road, and they would call and say, "Why are you leaving all your lights on? You're not home for the weekend." And I'm like, that's so strange. So we decided that we were going to remodel the upstairs, and the painters would come in and basically say, "We see shadows of people when we're painting." And I'm like, that's probably just my relatives, they're fine.
Right.
And I remember I stood at the top of the stairs one time, and I felt very weird. So this was probably a couple months after the demonic thing.
Right.
And I just felt two hands push me, and I fell all the way down the stairs.
Wow.
And
Really?
I never screamed so bad in my life from the pain. Yeah. He was in the
Wow.
shower. He gets out of the shower and he's like, "You got to watch your step." And I'm like, no, no. And like, I now educated Alicia knows my family members would have never done that. Like,
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't a good thing.
Right.
I don't know what it was. It only happened the one time, but I very much felt two hands push me. And
That is
now I have back
insane.
problems.
Yeah, I bet you do, falling down a flight of steps. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was
Man.
like 13 years ago, and I still have back problems from that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what do you say to people that kind of don't believe or skeptics and stuff like that? Because you firsthand have dealt with this. So what do you say to people that kind of don't believe, kind of like your husband at the time or whatever it was? What do you say to people when they just don't believe you? Because I know you're not going to throw yourself down a flight of steps. That's crazy,
Right.
So
Or, I mean, I could have fallen down the stairs, but I didn't.
right,
To be honest, this is just my opinion. I tell them that that's okay. You don't have to believe it. A lot of people need to experience things for themselves, but also I'm a big believer in difference of opinion.
Mhm.
I do have a lot of, I will say, females that will come to me for a reading, and then their husbands kind of come along and they're very blunt about, "I don't believe in you. I don't believe what you do." And I just very politely say, "Totally get it. Totally respect it. But also respectfully, you came to me. I did not go
Exactly.
searching for you."
Right, yeah, you
Um,
came to my house, buddy.
yeah. And usually by the end, I had one guy say to me, I don't believe in this, but I do believe in you. And I was like, okay, that's fine.
Well, that's a compliment, I would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, it's funny because his wife had come to me to discuss something completely different, and he was
Mhm.
just there to kind of tag along. And right before they were getting up to leave, I said, I know how you feel, but I also know me. I know I'm not crazy.
Mhm.
And this isn't exactly something that you want attention towards because a lot of people are skeptic. And I
Yeah,
believe they should be because there's also a lot of people that can fake this.
exactly.
So you should always go into it. Even me, when I get a reading, I go into it completely skeptical. And I think that
Right.
that's smart. But right before he went to leave, I said, so your grandfather's here. Do you want me to tell you about what he has to tell you or not? Because I'm also not going to voluntarily give you information if you're just not open to it.
Exactly.
And he was. And he's like, if you can answer a question for me that I asked him the entire time he was alive, I would be shocked. But I'm not going to tell you what the question was. And I went, okay, which is weird because normally I would shut that down and say, I'm not here to test my abilities on you.
Exactly.
They're here to tell you something you need to know. It's not up to me.
Right.
But he was there to actually answer the question for him. And I sat there for a minute and I said, prisoner of war. And he burst into tears. He said, I
Wow.
asked him if he was ever a prisoner of war and he wouldn't talk about it ever. And this is a World War II vet.
Right.
That I ended up reading him for about 3 hours and I didn't even
Wow.
change him. And it took
Wow.
me about 2 weeks to recover because my energy
Wow.
was so drained. Yeah.
Wow. So, that's awesome that you're able to do that, man. That's a gift that it would honestly scare me to death, but it's a
Yeah.
but, I guess it takes some getting used to. But how did your, demonic experience, how did that end? I mean, what come of that?
Nothing.
Did it just
Nothing.
stopped?
Well, the demonic stuff, yes. But that's because that rocked me so much
Mhm.
that I started being like, I got to do something about this. I'm old enough now to where I think I know what this is.
Mhm.
I think I know that I've been able to do this my whole life. And I don't want anything more negative coming in. So what do I have to do to basically like put up a barrier? So I ended up moving out towards Rochester, New York, and I had very visibly I was being haunted by how many
Wow.
spirits? I think there were 2 or 3 at the time. But at this point, my family still did not know that I
Right.
was a medium. So I knew that it terrified my mom because she didn't. Nobody understands until they really are kind of taught. But I said to her, I know you're coming out for the weekend. Just so you know, I've had a lot of things going on around my apartment. And she's like, well, what kind of things? I'm like, cupboards opening, water turning on,
Some of that
doors.
poltergeist stuff, huh?
Yeah. And she's like, that's not going to happen within an hour of us going to bed. She turned all the lights on and she's like, I'm moving you out tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. And that's when I just looked at her and I said, I don't think it's the place. I think
Right.
it's me. And she was like, what do you mean? I said, I think that I have a gift, but I don't think I'm listening because I'm so scared I push everything away.
Exactly.
And so I went to a specialist and I said, here's my situation. Here's basically give her my whole life story.
Mhm.
And she's like, oh, well, you just got to talk to them. Once you talk to them, they're going to leave you alone. I'm like, nope, not doing that. And
Not
she's
today.
not today. Couldn't be me. And she's like, well, you should, because if you do, they know you can hear them. But if you're not purposely listening, they're just going to keep bugging you. So I was mistaking that as though it was a poltergeist, something negative. She's like, because they were throwing like my bread at me. Like they were throwing my groceries and glasses. And
Wow.
to me, that's terrifying.
To
And
me too.
yeah. And so finally she was just like, no, they're trying to get your attention and you're not listening. And so I went home and I just sat in my living room and I went, okay, this is absolutely scary, but I'm just going to do it. And it ended up being my brother's friend that passed away at a very early age. And they thought that he had passed from a drug overdose, which he did overdose, but that wasn't why he passed. And he wanted
Right.
them to know it. And he's like, no, I was in the bathroom. I hit my head. My brain swelled. And I knew the moment like that I did the drugs, I was going to pass. But
Wow.
they tried to revive me, and I watched them try to revive me, and it didn't, all the Narcan in the world wouldn't have brought me back because of my brain. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. So then once I heard him and I got the message, gone.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wild. So how do you deal with the emotions of getting a message like that? You know,
It used to really bother me.
I can
Because I've
imagine.
seen the way, because every medium reads differently, but I can see them write things in the air, or I can see actual videos and images from their perspective. Like,
Okay.
like the World War II guy, he showed me a lot of things that a regular civilian is not used to seeing. And that's why it took me 2 weeks to recover. I have to almost not talk to anybody for like time for me to recover when it's things that are that intense. But at the end of the day, I helped them,
Right.
and I
I
can
bet
always bounce back. But the end of the day, that's my goal.
exactly. I bet it's very mentally draining, isn't it?
It can be. It used to be incredibly. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to sage. I'm going to ground before and after. I do a lot of praying, which a lot of people
Mhm.
actually find comfort in because they think that when they go to a medium, that automatically means you're working with the devil.
Yeah.
I have a rosary wrapped right around my hand when I'm doing my readings. And I really ask God for protection and just surround us with positive light, love. And I've never, ever been proven wrong on that. Like, I've
Yeah.
never had anything negative come in since that night that I was pushed down the stairs, essentially. But again, also feel like God saved me the night that I was choked. So,
Well, he definitely did, and I
yeah.
deal with that a lot, where I live. I live in the Bible Belt, the Bible thumping South here, and I'm a Christian. I am. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus and all that stuff. But because you want to talk about ghosts and stuff like this,
Mm.
I can hear the chatter behind me. Well, Corky, he's dabbling in stuff he shouldn't be doing, and really, I'm not. I'm just curious
Mm-mm.
about all of it. And if you believe in God and you believe in Jesus in a spirit world, then you got to understand there's stuff that's going on in that spirit world. And I've talked to too many
Correct.
people that tell me some of the same stories that you've told me. When they're
Mm.
young, I would wake up and there would be people at the foot of my bed. I've heard that story 4 or 5 times, and stuff just fascinates me. It's got nothing to do with worshiping the devil or anything like that. But I tell everybody, if you believe in good, then you have to believe in the bad side of it too, because they come hand in
Exactly.
hand. You know.
They do. And that's the thing is, it doesn't really matter to me what anybody believes. If I was raised Catholic, so if you believe in a heaven, then you have to believe in a hell.
Exactly.
So why can one thing exist without the other? But I will tell you what I usually tell people is, how can I be working with the devil if only positive things have come with it? When people leave, they feel better, not
Hmm.
worse. God would not, the devil wouldn't allow that.
Right.
God would, though.
And the one time you had a bad experience, God was there to help you through it.
100%. And he wasted
Yeah.
no time.
Hmm.
And I also, and I tell this to all my mentors the people I mentor, my mentees, whether they believe in God, if they're pagan, whatever they are. Before I start a reading, I ground myself, I sage, but I always do a prayer. And in that prayer, I always say, I'm just doing God's work. I have been obviously chosen to do something to help people and heal people, but I would be nothing without him. So I always give back. I say, thank you for this. Please, whatever needs to come out or through, please give me the capabilities to do it clearly and in a positive way. And never fails me. Never
Yeah.
fails me.
So, this stuff fascinates me. So when somebody comes to you, and I assume you have embraced it now. I think you do public readings and all that good stuff now. So when somebody comes to you and they want to get a reading from you, how do you prepare for that? Do they tell you, hey, I'm looking to speak with my so and so that passed away, or how does all that work?
Yeah. So again, I think every medium's different, but for me, I
Hmm.
I don't want to know anything really.
Right.
If they do say there's somebody very specific I want to talk to, I will ask for their first name and that is it, because I want to ask that soul's permission to speak to them, because they are busy. They're doing a lot up there. There's times where I will book a reading with somebody and say, there's no guarantee this person's going to come through. And that's not because they don't want to talk to you, but I am the messenger. I am not about to sit here and lie to you just to take your money.
Right.
It's not going to happen. I would much rather you keep your money and we try again. That's only happened to me one time. But again, I'm not in the business of faking anything. And I think that if you have enough detail, it's just not fakeable anyways.
Wow, that's awesome. So if you could go back and talk to that 3-year-old self of you, what would you tell her to kind of get her prepared for this lifelong gift you've got?
Wow. I would probably say embrace it sooner. Because I did know from a very young age that I was different, but I don't think I quite realized just how helpful it can be. Like, you'd be surprised how many people want to book readings for like their pets
Really?
because because they're convinced that their pets are angry with them for putting them down. And it's just not like that. Pets also pass very differently than humans. So I think that and again, not all mediums can do that, but for me being 3 years old, I read a lot of pets and I was able to even somehow do it with pets that were still alive. And I was made fun of a lot as a kid. I'd say the cat doesn't feel good, you got to bring it to the vet. No, the cat's fine. Well, they took it to the vet and the cat wasn't fine, you know?
Yeah.
So I would tell my 3-year-old self, like, embrace that. Embrace it, because it is going to be useful. Even if it's not useful to you, you are going to help people. And I love helping people.
That would be an awesome. That's amazing to me, because especially like I said, where I live out here in the South, a lot of the pastors, and this is one way that I disagree with a lot of people around here, because like I have 2 boxers here, me and my wife do, and they are, I've got 3 kids, but these boxers are my other 2 kids, and they'll tell you that, dogs and animals are, they don't have souls and stuff like that. And I don't believe that way, because, I can look at my 2 dogs and they have personalities. They get happy, they get sad. And, how does something, if we don't have a soul, then we're just a bag of meat walking around, I've never understood that. And I'll just take it to my grave. I'll always believe that animals have souls and stuff like that, because something's got to make them live,
100%.
And I think that's awesome that you're telling me that you could actually contact the animals, because I think it gives me comfort to realize when I speak with someone like you that, when all this ends, there is another path we go on. And I find that comforting, I really do.
Yeah, 100%. And, it's interesting. I was helping my neighbor do a garage sale. She's a little bit older. This young couple walked in and we just struck up a conversation, and about an hour later, she said, I don't know why, but I want to ask you if you'd like to come to dinner. They were from Florida, so they were just visiting. And I was like, sure, why not? Like, just because they were really nice people, and I never do anything like that. But we're at dinner, and one thing leads to another. I ended up telling her, yeah, I'm a medium. And she goes, do you get anything about me? And I said, actually, you have like little peanuts around circling like your head. And she
Really?
goes, and she just goes, what? And I go, I don't know what that means. And she goes, I'm up here from Florida because my dog Peanut died. And
Wow.
I literally, right before I walked into that garage sale tent, said to my husband, I don't know why, but I feel like we're like meant to be here. And she goes, I think that might be why. Because when I left the tent, I said, there's a reason we met her and I don't know why yet. So I ended up giving them a full reading. I could tell her the kind of dog it was, the gender, all these little details. Like, she loved her favorite pink collar, all these things. And, but then the dog says to tell her, I know that you've already replaced me with a puppy. And she was like, is it upset? And I'm like, no, but she still thinks she's better than this dog. She goes, yeah, that seems like her personality. And so she asked me, when you put a pet down, do they get angry? And I said, it's so interesting because when people die, you have whoever you were closest with, like a
Mhm.
parent, grandparent, whoever, they come down, they bring you up to heaven, right?
I
When a
hope
pet
so.
dies, yeah, but when a
Mhm.
pet dies, it's so different. It's a very different experience. So we actually have higher selves.
Mhm.
And so half of us are earthbound, half of us are still, like, half of our soul is still wherever everybody else is, right? And when a dog, cat, any animal passes away that has an owner and you're going to put it down, they don't acknowledge that you've ever left them because your higher self greets them into heaven.
Wow.
So to them, they've never been without you until it's time for you to pass, and then they are made aware and then they welcome you. And
Wow.
I've always found that fascinating
That
because,
yeah, you just blew my mind. That's
yeah,
awesome to think about. Let's talk
it's
about
amazing.
that. You
Yeah.
said maybe half of our souls still up there, and I guess the other part's earthbound. Explain that a little bit more to me, because maybe that's why we feel that connection, to other places and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I won't really know all of it till I'm gone, but
Right.
from what I'm told,
Hmm.
um, we have our higher selves, and you can always, like, a lot of people will meditate and try to talk to their higher selves because they're all knowing. They know your entire life before it happens. They know your soul contract. They know, basically everything that's going to happen in your life. If you're going to pass away young, what you're going to do for a living, when you're going to die. Obviously they're not going to share that with you if you were to do a meditation, but
Right.
because they're up there and they are working with your guides to help guide you through this life, learn your lessons that you didn't learn either in a previous life or in heaven, whatever you believe in, then I just feel like they hang out with your pet, your other loved ones. They know the contract. They're all knowing, essentially. So then when we die, we just reconnect with it. That is
Wow.
what I've been told, at least.
That's awesome to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, especially on a pet aspect, because
yeah.
I love my dog. My dog is my soul dog.
Right.
But I know that he's not going to be scared because I'm going to be right there on the
Right.
other side, and that I think it helps people
Right.
knowing that.
Yeah, it really does. Usually, my wife is sitting right here off camera, and because a lot of times when I get to listening to someone talk, I'll draw a blank, you know, and she's over there holding up, a little board to ask her this or ask them this or whatever. And she helps me keep the conversation going. But she's not in here today. And I wish she was, because she'd be fascinated with this conversation. So I can't wait to tell her about that once we get done recording today.
Yeah, for
But yeah,
sure.
let's switch gears just a little bit. Another thing that I have always thought about is, have you ever had to help someone that doesn't realize they've passed away yet? Have you ever had any stories like that?
Yes. Recently, actually, um, there was. I drive about 50 minutes to get to work every morning, and I kept driving past this road. And every time I went past the road, I kept. I just immediately was like state of confusion, and I was like, "Why is this happening?" And then one morning, I said, "I'm gonna actually like not stop, but focus when I get to that road to see why all of a sudden my train of thought is like so staticky." And I just kept hearing a woman saying, "My kids, my kids, my kids." And I got a
Wow.
text when I got to work. My mom had texted me that a young woman had drowned in that pond on that road
Oh man.
a couple days prior. And so when I went by, I didn't look anything up because they didn't know anything in the news. So I was like, I'm just going to go talk to her. I'm going to see, because if she's yelling out for her kids,
Mhm.
she's not passed. So I don't want her sitting there in a state of confusion if I can help her.
Right.
So I went on my way home, And sure enough, right there. And I just said, what, like, it's okay. You're okay. And she's like, it's dark here. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, but she didn't seem scared. She just wanted to know where her kids were. And I said, do you know that you drown? And she showed me what she looked like. I described it to my mom. I said, she's a female. She's around this age. This is what she looks like. And she goes, well, I don't know. They couldn't even identify her yet. This is how early it was. And,
Had they found her body yet, or is this
yeah.
something that, okay.
Yep. They found her, but they didn't know what happened. They just found her vehicle in a pond. That's it.
Wow.
So we didn't know her name. We didn't know age. We knew nothing. We didn't know if she was even local. And so I said to this spirit, I said, I'm going to try to help you cross over. You've passed away. And she goes, I can't. I'm scared. And I said, you don't have to be scared. I said, you don't see your babies right now because you're not passing over. You will see your babies and be able to watch over them if you go through the light. And she was just like, I don't think I can do this. And
Wow.
then she stops me and she says, also, I didn't drown. And I go, you didn't drown? And she's like, well, I went to turn my car, missed the road, went over a hill and landed in this pond, but I hit my head and I died from that. And I went,
man.
okay. And I'm just like, listen to her. I'm letting her talk. And she's like, what are my kids going to do? I'm all they have. And I'm like, it will be okay, but you can't help them in the state that you're in right now. You are stuck. So let's get you there. So I said, go to the light. And then she couldn't find it. So I had to almost create one for her. I know this sounds crazy, but it's energy work.
Right.
And so she saw it and she starts walking and all of a sudden she just stops. And I'm like, oh, she's not going to do it. And she stops and she turns around and she's like, I am scared, but thank you. And she walked through and I haven't heard from her since. And then a couple days later, my mom told me who it was. She wasn't local. But the image I saw of her was the exact same. She was wearing the same exact clothes in the photo.
Wow.
And I said to my mom, I go, she's not saying she drowned though. And she's like, I don't know. She said she drowned, or the article says she drowned. And then a week later, it came out that that was not the cause of death. It was a head injury.
That is crazy, man. So
Yeah.
you just pulled up on the side of the road and just started connecting with her like that, or how
Yep.
did you do that? Wow, really?
Yep.
Man. So
Because it's not
what
every day
is,
that happens. So I was like,
yeah.
well, I'm going to see what I get.
Well, hey, I guess you're doing your job, I guess, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
what is the crossing into the light? What is that whole thing about? Do you know anything about that? I guess you're crossing into the other side. I mean,
It's hard because you have people that have unfinished business and then they stay here or they get stuck. It honestly depends a lot how you pass. If it's a tragic or like immediate like accident or something, that's how you kind of get stuck. I will
wow.
say I have had spirit tell me that it's much easier to pass if you, I don't want to say religious, but like if you have a type of belief while you're here.
Right.
Now, that's not to say atheists don't go to heaven or
Mhm.
they, not saying that whatsoever. But if you already have that belief, when you wake up on the other side, you're not scared because you know where you are. If you don't have that belief, it's more like a lot of confusion. And they've always described it as like their head feels like a bubble, like a swollen, staticky bubble. And then they're just like, where do I go? What do I do?
Right. Because you don't know. It's kind of like going on a road trip without a map. As long as you've got a
Yeah.
map, it can help you get there. But if you don't have a map, then you're just driving around hoping you take the right turn, I guess,
Yeah, and a lot of the times, if they don't come across a medium to help, they do have family members that will have to cross through that light to come down and pull them back up, which
Wow.
happens more times than none. But as far as like why there's a light, why they have to go through it, I don't know. I've just always been kind of told that's like the barrier for crossing over. But
Mhm.
almost every spirit has told me there's no time here. And we're given around, like, if you were to put time on it, around 2 weeks after you pass to make a decision. You have 2 weeks to stay here, attend your funeral, say your goodbyes, or you can immediately cross and then just kind of view it all from above. It's whatever that spirit chooses after they do a reflection of their entire life, their lessons, their mistakes, all those things.
I wonder what happens if they don't make that choice within that 2-week period.
You know what? I'm not sure, because the spirits that I've talked to, I feel like they've always said they knew what their response was going to be right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I would assume that they would probably stay in limbo and just hang around. But
Maybe that's how we get hauntings here, you know?
it
And all
very
that stuff.
well, yeah, very well could be. But I also feel like they can pass and still come back down, though.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say. I did have a woman, she was from like early 1900s, come through, and she's like, "This is my last adventure." And I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" And she said, "Well, when you pass away, you have your kids, then you have your grandkids, and then you have their kids. If you are lucky enough to be a great grandparent and meet them, that's where the line draws." So basically, you can keep coming down and visiting those people as long as you knew of them while you were here. And then
Okay.
once that generation passes away, you can either reincarnate or you can basically go into a state of constant bliss and euphoria where you just live in
Wow.
happiness with your family.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I guess you would have no more ties to the earth, to wherever
Exactly.
we're at now, you know, I guess. Makes sense. A funny thing, the first show, I do another podcast with all my friends, and we review horror movies. And that's, you know, we have a good time on that show. But I
Okay.
always grew up listening to Art Bell. I don't know if you know who that is, but
Mm-mm.
he was an old nighttime radio host back in the day, and he would talk about, you know, Bigfoot, aliens, ghosts, and all that stuff with everybody. So I
Uh-huh.
always wanted to do something like this. So the first time I got together, I had one of my friends from work, and he, you know, him and his wife came on. They were telling me, you know, ghost stories that they had growing up. Well, through the conversation, it came out that she was a medium, and she had never told anybody before. So she actually started acknowledging it right there on the show. And during that show, you know, all of a sudden, all my electronics started going crazy. I started getting kicked out of the recording and all that stuff. And finally, she stopped me and she said, "Corky, I just want you to know that usually when all this stuff starts happening, somebody's wanting to talk to you."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Well, that's great. I don't want to hear it if they do,
Yeah.
because, you know, I don't think I'm ready to hear no messages from the, you know, from the other side. But what's your take on that? Do you think that stuff like that can happen?"
The
Because you
electronic.
can go back and listen to that episode. It's the
Yeah.
first one I put out, and it freaked me out. I even went, as soon as that show was over, I went to the other room to where my wife was at. I said, "I don't know if I want to do this or not, because I'm going to have to deal with this every time I do one of these shows. I don't know if I want to do it or not." But yeah, what's your take on that, man? Because that's honestly freaked me out ever since it happened.
100%. Yeah,
Mm,
they definitely they need
great.
some sort of energy source most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't always happen like that. For me, it's only happened once, and I had actually gone to a medium, and I was like, "Oh, my grandma's here." And this was before even I acknowledged it. And she's like, "No, she's not." And her chandelier started like spinning, and she goes, "Well, that's never happened." And then she goes, "Ooh, now I hear her." She's like, "What the hell?" But yeah, they suck. I mean, all of those like Ghost Adventures,
Mm-hmm.
Ghost Hunters, they use electrical devices, and I mean, they do drain for a reason. Do I think most of it is? Uh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to put my opinion. I think Ghost Hunters is exaggerated.
Oh, no,
Ghost,
look, we got the same opinion. There's a
yeah,
certain show, and you'll probably know the show I'm talking about. This dude gets possessed every show.
every
And
show.
look, and
Yep.
listen, I get it. If somebody was paying me a paycheck to get possessed every show, I'm going to get possessed every show, you know, because I got bills
Exactly.
to pay. You know what I'm saying? So I don't
100%.
hate them for it. It's entertainment, but I don't really believe that show. There's some of the other shows I give a little credence to, but as far as
Yeah.
that one, strictly entertainment, and there's
And
nothing
you know
wrong with it.
what? She might read so differently than me,
Hmm.
and so she may tell them to use energy source.
Yeah.
So that's I 100% believe if that's how it works for her or that's what
Hmm.
happened in the moment, 100%.
You know, it
Um,
definitely freaked me out. I know that for
yeah.
sure.
I think I've had a lot of people cancel readings with me because they're scared. And it's very normal, and I always try to kinda talk them through it and just say, "You are never going to hear anything that you cannot handle because I have God on my side."
Right.
Uh, I've gone to a woman before where me and another medium saw the exact same thing. And it's so interesting because it's a very specific thing. He told her that I can't see this person. He's a silhouette of a black shadow because he's in hell.
Oh, dang.
It was very dark, very deep. And I was like, that is not a good medium. And I'm going to tell you why. Number one, if you're doing the things you're supposed to do, negative messages like that, they're not going to come through. Also,
Okay.
two, real spirit will tell you what is for your highest good. It's not going to scare you. It's not going to make you leave feeling shittier than when you came.
Right.
And I said, he obviously hasn't, and I'm not trying to down him or anything, but when you're a medium, there's a lot of vague people because they haven't perfected the craft of knowing symbols, what these messages mean. I am a big believer in don't speak on what this spirit is saying until you 100% know that you have the message right.
Right.
And so when I was reading her, I just said, I can see why he would think that, but in reality, this person has a lot of shame attached to them. They're in heaven, they're with their person, but their light is dimmed because they are so embarrassed of the life that they had. And she's like, that makes so much sense because he was not the best person, but he wasn't so bad that he should be in hell. And I'm like, because he's not.
Wow.
If he was in hell, he wouldn't even show up,
I guarantee it. I don't think the Lord would give anybody in hell the chance to come and speak to anybody else. I mean, yeah.
No.
As far as other than the one demonic entity you told me about, have you ever felt in danger anymore after that?
I think so. It's interesting because I feel like I have done so much work to protect myself since that because it was my first and such a intensely traumatic experience for me that now I almost laugh at how I used to be because everything would scare me. And now if there's somebody standing at the end of my bed, I'll roll over and be like, I am sleeping right now. It is not the time. And then I just go back to sleep.
Yeah, I interviewed the Paranormal 411 guys a few weeks ago, and he told me the same thing. He said, I would wake up and somebody would be at the foot of my bed. And he said, I'm to the point now, I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, you're going to come back tomorrow. I've got to work in the morning. So I'm sleeping right now. You don't get to do this right now.
And you
But
do have the ability to do that.
yeah, you're telling me. And you know what? And that just lets me know that all this stuff is real because I've heard the same stuff from multiple different people. And it blows my mind that you'll have a lot of people out there that are so negative minded that they just don't want to accept the fact that this stuff is real. But I believe it because I've heard it from too many different people. And I know all you guys aren't calling each other and say, all right, man, when we talk to Corky, make sure you say this because I done told him this. That's just not how it goes, So
Right.
I really got to put credence into this, man. I really do.
Yeah. A lot of people have experiences.
Yeah. So what do you fundamentally think that people misunderstand about death?
About death, that it's painful and scary.
What do you mean by
that? So I have asked all the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Is it terrifying to cross over? Are you alone? Is it dark? What's your emotions like? I've asked all of it. And they describe it as, obviously, not to get dark, but if you're murdered, obviously there's going to have some fear there while you're still here. And it can cause a lot of trauma even when you pass. So, for example, say you drown in this life or a past life, right? And then you decide to come back and you are terrified of water and you have no idea why. Probably because you drowned in a past life,
Yeah.
If you believe in reincarnation. But I don't know. I just think that there's way too many spirits that have described it as like falling asleep.
Mm-hmm.
It's so quick and do we ever remember falling asleep? Not really. And then they always describe it as though like it's the most beautiful experience you will ever have in your life. And it's very hard to describe that to my friends that are like terrified of it because I had one spirit that was like, take my hand and I'll show you what heaven looks like. And I was like, dope. I'm in, you know?
Let's go, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Literally. And it was beautiful. It was like there were more colors there,
Wow.
more colors than there are here. And it's a lot brighter. It is the most euphoric, happy, loving feeling. That I was like, ah, shit, I don't want to come back. but,
Well, you hear that a
oh,
lot.
yeah.
I hear a lot. I interviewed a lady that had a NDE, a near-death experience, and she told me the same thing when she was over there. She's
Really?
like, I don't want to go back. And I
No.
forget who it was that she told her, said, nah, you're not done yet. You got to go back. And she was angry. She said, man, why would I want to go back to that place when I'm here?
I've had some spirits even go as far, and they're joking when they say it, but they've said, Earth is hell. They're like, it's
Right.
all the emotions that come with a human being is a lot to handle because they don't have all that there. They don't have time. They don't have animosity. They don't have anxiety, none of that. To them, it's like, okay. But I remember when my grandmother passed, she had come and she wanted to talk to my grandpa. And this was probably 2 or 3 days after she passed away. So she was still within that time. And because she decided, oh, I want to hang around for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And she said to me, she had explained why she died the way that she died. And that he wasn't understanding it because he's very much a man of faith. And it was, why did God this? Why did God that? And he never was questioning God, but he just didn't understand why he couldn't save her, essentially. Right. And she said, he's missing the point. God gave him the opportunity to try to save me so that he would know this was how it was supposed to be. If he was in the other room and didn't know what was happening, then he'd kick himself even more.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So I told him that. And she said, you don't understand. You have to tell him that when I died, it was literally like falling asleep. And I'm in such a happy place. I don't want to come back. And I said, you really want me to say that to him? Because he's grieving. And she said, I do. Because he knows God and he knows I'm with God. And I said, okay. So I told him that. And he started crying, and I'd never seen him cry. And she said to me, tell him if he saw what I saw, he would not shed one tear for me. And I went, okay.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That gives you a lot of comfort when you think about, that state. Because, we all got a ticket that's going to get punched, and everybody's, I don't care who you are, you're curious about it. So that's comforting, man. That really is. And, usually how I end this podcast is I always ask this question. I ask, what happens after we die? But, man, I think you've already answered that.
Well, I don't have all the answers, but I'd like to think that it's really us just going home.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's really a good way to put it. Man, I want to thank you a lot for coming on and talking to me tonight, man. This was probably one of the best interviews I've ever done, and
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Do you want to tell everybody before we cut out of here how they can find you and all that good stuff? If you want to, if you don't, that's fine. But, just say whatever you want to say.
Yeah, so I don't have an Instagram for my business page, but if you want to find me on Instagram, it's ALESIAAAK123. And then on Facebook, I am the AK Psychic Medium.
Oh, there you have it. Alesia, thanks again for coming on here tonight, man. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I really appreciate it. We'll see everybody next time. See you. Bye.
In the paranormal war room, the legends arise.